One of the most challenging things to do, I think, in our rivers is catch a Chinook salmon on a swung fly. I've got a fly pattern that'll help stack the odds in your favor. Join me and Chris from Drift Outfitters while we sit down to tie one of my favorite Chinook salmon flies. Steelhead and salmon are coming back into the rivers, there's plenty of ways to catch them nymphing, but catching a big coho or Chinook salmon on the swing or on a strip is pretty amazing. They take a lot of line, they hit really hard, and they're quite aggressive if you show them the right fly. The fly we're going to tie now is loosely based off of the classic lure that everyone uses to catch salmon, the little Cleo. It's a flashy fly, it's relatively small, and it has good contrast. This one's going to be orange and gold, one of my most successful colors for pre-spawn running Chinook salmon in some of our Ontario rivers. And it's a great way to fish for them and get the fish to move to the fly, not fishing down to them. You'll catch less fish, but you'll hook them in the mouth. It'll be a great fight, and the hit's one you won't forget. So we're going to start off just with some black 10-0 thread, just on a number 1 or number 2 salmon hook. I like a pretty big hook for this pattern because you want a little bit of profile. The little Cleo that I'm trying to imitate is about 2 inches long, roughly. We're going to tie this back to the point. We're going to tie in just some flat braid to add some flash for the tag. And the tag will be about 1/4 of an inch long or so. You want overlapping turns of this to hide all the thread. This fly is fished, or is tied fairly sparse in order to let it sink. We aren't fishing it with any additional weight, just a sink tip often. Can be fished on a single hand or 2-handed rod. The fly also works extremely well on the strip, so it's not all about the swing for these. When I'm swinging it through, I guess I should say, salmon often run in warmer water temperatures than steelhead, where the fish can be a little bit more active. So instead of just this true swing through the water after my mend, or even I won't mend, and I'll add little short strips as the fly's coming through the pool to create action and let the fish chase it down and eat it. We're going to use really flowy materials again to get that good action. So we're going to use, for the hackle, a nice orange webby hackle like this schlap in here. That'll be good. We're going to tie it in by the tip and utilize some of those smaller hackle fibers down low in the fly to create a nice natural taper. The way I came across this fly was there was a day I was out guiding in October for steelhead on one of the rivers that I float, and I ran into some bank anglers, and one of the anglers was just smacking salmon on gold and orange spoons, enough that I had to go over and ask him what he was using. So I tied up something that can be about the same size, especially the same color, and I found success with it. So thank you to that nice angler who shared what he was using. I'm going to wax the thread up and go with a little bit of bulk on the body with some Angora goat dubbing. You can put it in a loop if you want. I'm just going to make a dubbing noodle out of it. It tends to be very similar to like a semi-seal or a seal fur, good replacement material. It can be quite hard to dub without wax, so you definitely want to have some wax on your thread. And you're going to make a nice little body of this orange all the way up the fly. You could also add a rib if you want, but again, I find I don't really need it all the time. And we're going to use fairly loose wraps just to create the right kind of profile, not too much bulk up the fly. Great. All right, then we're gonna do is take a little bit of mallard flank. I really like mallard on a lot of flies. It just creates a really nice variegated kind of mottled appearance. So we're going to tie that in by the tip. And pull those fibers back. If you want to really sparse, you can strip one side of the feather too. It also works well. All right, I'm just going to take a dubbing needle quick and pick some of those fibers apart. All right, we're gonna add the wing. So we're gonna use Arctic fox for the wing. It's just gonna be like a hair wing, traditional, almost Atlantic salmon fly. I'm gonna make it pretty bulky. You'll see on the Arctic fox when you buy it, all the fibers kind of want to twist one way. So we're gonna try to find some that create some good natural little curve and tie it in that same orientation. I'm gonna brush out the under fur a little bit, let it tie in a little bit easier. I'm gonna keep the guard hairs in, create a nice tapered profile. Sometimes what I like to do is put it in the orientation that I want it to kind of sit, and then I'll kind of pull the top fibers a little bit just to create a little bit of natural taper. And pull the other ones that way a bit. So the ones on top will be about a quarter longer than the ones underneath, roughly. That seems to be about right. We're going to tie that in as a clump to the front, pulling all those fibers back. And then to keep up with the golden orange color, I'm going to add some gold flashabou. We're not going to go super light on it. These fish are not feeding, so we're trying to get some sort of an aggression response out of them. So utilizing 5 or 6 strands is not overkill. Go down one side on the tire side, and then cinch that down nice and tight. And then we'll do kind of the same on the opposite side. And cut them about the same length. And you can play with the density of your wing. You could make that a little smaller if you wish, if you wanted to be a little bit lower water. But there, it's not too bad. That's about what I want with a whip finish. A little short on the eye of the hook, but better than crowding the hook eye. Remember to fish this fly with some action throughout your swing. Whether you're pumping the rod or you're fishing it on a single hand rod and you're giving it little 6-inch strips. This one can get quite an aggressive response from Chinook salmon. You're making the fish move to the fly. It's got a lot of action in that wing. It's quite, it'll keep with the wing, the Arctic fox will keep the orientation correctly with the hook point down throughout the swing. And that flash is going to add a lot of extra movement and vibration, and obviously flash in front of the fish. You get fish taking these in many different ways, often quite aggressive, swimming a good distance to hit it. Fish it on the dangle too, once you get to the end, giving it good pumps. You can sight fish to Pacific salmon when they're holding, get upriver from them, dangle that fly in their face a bunch of times. It's not always about the cast 2 steps, cast 2 steps. You can sit there and kind of get it in front of them and get them to move a few feet to the fly. They just tend to get pissed off at it. I think orange stands out in the watercolor. That might be a little bit turbid, and yeah, it results in some really fun fishing. That's probably an underfished technique for Pacific salmon in Ontario.